Before we go to seminars, though, we're going to do something a little bit different this morning. I'm going to ask Mark and Lori Berry to come up, and one of the things I was thinking about with this conference is the fact that we have two amazing people here who have been doing mission work for really the last 15 to 20 years. I mean, if you take into account your time, right after college and doing missions and that sort of thing. And so I thought that one of the things I want to make sure that you all know about them is just kind of a little bit of their story, a little bit of how they felt called to go into foreign missions. Because some of you in here, I would love for you to see you go into foreign missions. And so I want to make sure they're telling their story and the conversation is going on. Maybe you have questions for them. But I thought that for right now, before we go to seminars, if maybe you guys would just tell just a little bit of your history, maybe how you came to faith, and then how you began thinking about missions. So I don't know who wants to go first, but you can go first. And you can do this. Let's do it. Yeah. I think that's on. Yep.
Okay, my testimony is that I grew up in a Christian home. As I mentioned, the first time I was born in Baltimore, grew up in a Christian home, kind of moving around quite a bit every 2 or 3 years. And that was because my dad was a professional football player, and he played for the Baltimore Colts for 13 years. And he was a tight end, he called them ends in those days, he played in the 50s and 60s. And he was really good. I mentioned he was good at his career. Well, he was a first-time inductee to the Hall of Fame, maybe 5 years after he retired. So I grew up with him being very famous and, having a lot of attention and things like that. And then he went into, when I was 2 years old, he went into coaching. And so he coached professionally, one stint in college. And so that was why we moved every 2 or 3 years growing up. Ended up in New England, where he was an assistant there with the Patriots when I was, junior high and high school. I did my junior high and high school there. And went off to college, and then my freshman year in college, he became the head coach of the Patriots. And he was there for 5 years. That was his only head coaching job. The first time they went to the Super Bowl. And so this was kind of I tell you that just to say that part of my story was, I mentioned, a little bit on the first night, idolatry, and part of my kind of discovery in my own growth. I was a Christian. I became a Christian in Baptist Sunday school class when I was 7 years old. I still have a little book where I wrote my name in, a Sunday school teacher's name. So I understood, and I was learning from my parents about the basics of the faith. I grew up in that. I knew I was a sinner and needed Christ. And as when I went to college, I ended up leaving New England, going down to Nashville, Tennessee, going to Vanderbilt. And that was where I began to have Christian friends. The whole time I was longing for, I kind of through a crisis of faith, took a religion class that really challenged a lot of my assumptions. Eventually God brought me through that. And I realized, no, I believe in Christ. It's not just because of my parents, teach me this is my own. So my faith became my own really in a significant way. Which is a whole other story when I was 20. And then I just had this yearning to grow. I wanted to find a church where I could hear the word. And I couldn't have told you exactly in words, but I was yearning for something that I wasn't getting. I was trying to go into different churches. And finally I ended up at a friend, I think my junior year in college, invited me to a PCA church that was really starting to grow. A little bit south of Nashville. I started attending there, and the first time I went, heard the pastor preaching. This is where I'm going to be. He was expositing the scriptures. And I just ate it up. That led to me and several other guys from Vanderbilt. Church was young, growing, lots of people coming, and we just cornered the pastor one day and said, "You have to disciple us. We just have to be discipled." So he spent a year with us, meeting with us on Saturday mornings, taking us through really what was the Reformed faith, which I really had not known about. It's really what I believed, but I'd never heard it articulated. And so I just grew like crazy. So when I graduated, I took a job just so I could stay in the area. I was working at a family business. I had an uncle that had a business there, so he hired me, and I worked there for 2 years. But mostly, I wanted to stay close to the church. I was growing like crazy, and that was where I received my call to ministry. I was working with youth, and eventually, I worked with college. The church that I was attending, I mentioned to you, ended up bringing me on staff after I'd been in the youth program as a volunteer, helping. And so they had volunteer interns that were kind of heading up different ministries, and they asked me to head up the college career. And so I did that for about 3 years. So in that context, what I want to say about this, and I'm going to pass it to Lori, is that it's just simply that one of the things that was going on there in that church was there was kind of like revival. There were a lot of people that were coming to an understanding of some of the things I've been preaching, about the gospel, and it's not about you and works, and even getting saved, and then it's all this stuff you got to do for God. There's so many people, especially in the South, but I think about really evangelicalism all over the place, no matter where you are in the world, even there's that tendency's there, and it's just there's a moralism and a legalism that just sort of has people locked down. That was my case, and I was just discovering God really loves me. Just discovering about adoption and sonship in this particular church. It was transforming my life and a lot of other people. And so in this college ministry, we had this leadership team, and all of us, we were out of college, we were working with students, but man, we were all just discovering and just growing. And so in that context, I heard about missions. And there was our church, part of it, when it started out, 50% of its budget went to missions. And so they had a family in the church that they sent to Haiti. That church, our church that we were part of, they were their one church. They had one church that was supporting them fully as a family to go. So we got, eventually Lori too, involved with going to visit them, to help them. And man, that was a whole other piece of just going into Haiti the first time. I remember doing a VBS with kids and not knowing the language, Creole, doing through translation, but seeing the need for the Word of God and having a sense in my own heart. I remember just thinking on that trip, I think I was 24, this is what I got to do. I have to be someplace. I'm discovering this stuff, and I want other people to know it too. That was basically it. And I had the sense that I want to do it in another language. I want to learn how to go across that barrier to get them the stuff I'm getting, but in a way they can understand it. I remember being kind of frustrated, because you couldn't speak the language. So that was kind of the part of it for me. And the last little thing I would share is just kind of wrapping it back around to my own personal story, is that in the midst of all this, I would say kind of personal revival for me and for a lot of people, I was kind of getting my call to ministry and then to missions. And there was a number of other people that was happening to too. And in that church, a lot of people went out. I mentioned this family went to Haiti, but there were, I could name multiple other people in that period of time that went to India, that went to into Eastern Europe, that just were getting called. And so that gospel movement was taking place where people were the gospel was getting a hold of them, and they were just like, we want to go other places. Now there were certain people that were part of that church that were mentoring us and talking about these ideas, kind of like I'm doing with you guys, that kind of got a hold of us. And the book that I quoted last night from Harvey Kahn, but the book is by Jack Miller, and he was a significant influence for me. I started a mission and really along these lines of how renewal and revival in the gospel just propels you that way. And that's happening all over, really now, and some of the things that you hear from Tim Keller and these kind of men. This is the theme, okay? So, but in my own personal story, part of that process was understanding the ideas and just being, wow, I've never heard this before, and just having a sense of being on fire, wanting to go to do missions. With Chris, my connection with him in New City, at New City Fellowship in St. Louis, as we were doing cross-cultural ministry in the city, which I just loved, and that was part of my story. But in the midst of all of it, I was realizing that this issue about my own kind of upbringing, and when the gospel gets a hold of you, there's a sense of it's just amazing. But then it's when it starts to go deeper. That's when you start getting into some of the issues of brokenness, your own idols, and that's when it gets real crazy, but in a good way. And so for me, it was coming to that place that I mentioned on that first night, of kind of in the midst of the ministry, kind of getting sat down and having that idol of sort of success that I sort of realized I'd just gotten from, I want people's approval. I mean, I want people to think well of me, and that was just this big thing from my upbringing. When I saw my dad's fame, in a sense, I didn't, necessarily want fame, but I wanted something like that. And that was the thing that was driving me. I didn't even know it. And so, in the midst of all that, to realize that God, I think I had just sort of gone in the route of ministry. It's like, I'm going to be really good at ministry, right? And realizing just that's you take a good thing and you make it into something bad, and you don't even know you're doing it. And so, God, His grace just kind of cracked that with me. But it took this time of breaking me, took my wife coming alongside and saying, why wouldn't you just believe that God loves you? Even though you've done that, even though that's kind of who you are, He loves you anyways. It's not about your great performance in ministry now. It's about the fact He just loves you. And boy, the pride that comes with that idolatry, even all the stuff, I've been teaching people grace and teaching the gospel and stuff like that, but there was this pride that was there that didn't want to have that be for me. I didn't want to have to be the homeless guy, the broken guy, the guy who Jesus has to come in and sort of heal. In my heart of hearts, I wanted to teach that to other people, but I didn't want to have to be that guy. And the Lord now I love being that guy. Because it's just like, that's where life is. And in our experience with missions, that, we'll share a little more about that, I guess, tonight. But how that kind of comes in, that message for it, just, there's a lot of hard stuff you go through. And getting that right, and having a sense of where do I go, have these issues, and I have to see my sin, dealing with the sin of other people, man, it's just so important that becomes sort of your language, you understand. And we're in the process, still growing in that as well. Okay?
The better half over here.
Yes.
Now. Okay, well, we're not really opposite happening. I did not grow up in a Christian home. So I grew up, I was born in Nashville. You can tell by my speak, but I was born in Nashville. When I was little, we moved to Little Rock, Arkansas. So that's where I really grew up until I finished high school. And so broken home, dysfunctional kind of stuff. My dad was an alcoholic. There was adultery, all sorts of fun stuff going on there, and not so fun really. But anyway, so I just grew up kind of surviving. Just kind of learned how to survive and basically wall myself off from everything. And eventually, when I graduated from high school, I went to college, and I ended up at Auburn University. And it was there that through some friends, I kind of started realizing there's got to be more to life than I was succeeding in lots of things, I was in leadership in a lot of things, and I realized there's got to be more to life than this, but I didn't know what that was, and so I had people around me. I saw a girl that was just came to Christ over a break. She was like this wild person, friend of mine, but wild, crazy. Came to Christ over the break, come back, starts coming to my room and sharing Christ with me. And I had another friend who cried, but with hope. And I thought, there's something different about her. What's going on? I want to see that. I want to know more about her. So it was through those girls kind of sharing their life with me, and my roommate we would read the 1-year Bible together. And I didn't know what was going on there, but it was these people that were just like living their life in front of me. And I was really impacted by that. And so one summer, I just stayed basically year-round at school. And one summer, I was in this Bible study, and we was on the 10 Commandments, and basically got to do not commit adultery. And it was like, okay, the Lord just kind of spoke to me and said, you can live like this, like the adultery you've seen and that against me, or you can live for me. And it was there that He really changed my life. And in college, it was like a pivotal time. And I began walking with actually an REF intern at that point at Auburn. And I was really obviously new to the faith and just kind of what is prayer and just reading the Bible and all that. So I began growing, graduated, and I ended up moving to by this time my mom had moved back to Tennessee. My parents both moved back to Tennessee, and I ended up at the church where Mark was attending, and that's where we met. And so I started volunteering and doing volunteer stuff with junior high and college, and then actually when and growing, I met a family there that the Lord really used to grow me and show me a family and in Christ that wasn't perfect but had Jesus and would just cry out to him when they had struggles in their family. Then they did that, inviting me into their family. And so I really learned a lot about who God is just from being around people, the family of God, and just being in church and just the Lord just began to kind of break down those walls and renew me. In Ezekiel 36, that whole passage, if you haven't read it, it's where God restores, and it's God that does it, and that's there's nothing in me. It was only God that had changed and did the renewal in my life. And so then as I was there, Mark actually went to seminary. Then I went on staff as well with college ministry with another guy, Keith Berger, which you guys probably know him. And so, anyways, I was working. They were going on to all these missions trips, and I just thought, I don't even know what missions is. But God, if you want me to be a part of this, show me, So the next day, so I was talking to a friend of mine, and she was on this trip to Haiti, and she said, "We'll talk to Mark." And so Mark said, "Why don't you pray about it and get back to me?" So I did. I asked the Lord to help me pray every hour if He wanted me to go to Haiti. So the next day at work, every single hour, the Lord brought it to my mind to pray about it. And I was like, oh. I just felt like, so I went back to him and I said, I know I'm supposed to go. So went to Haiti, and that is where I realized where I wanted to be. And it was because I knew that God had saved me out of so much stuff in my life and has renewed me and given me a hope where there was no hope, and given me grace and mercy and salvation and new life in Him. And I wanted people that I'm seeing in Haiti, just people that don't know Him and need Him, and people all over the world. And I thought, that's what I want to be. I want to be sharing what God's done in my life with other people that need to hear the same truth. So, anyways, there's more story of our story, but we can go there later. But thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, and part of this is kind of the beginning of the conversation. We're going to do more tonight, just hearing about their call to Peru and some of the things that have happened down in Peru and Lima. And but with that, we're going to stop here for now. And you guys are going to go to your seminars. I know we're running a little bit behind, but really felt that this is what we need to do as well. We need to hear about them. You guys need to feel the freedom to ask them questions. If you're, if they brought up something that you want to know more about, like, they're available to talk to. So please use them. Amazing resource right here. So, and this morning they kind of shared a little bit about how they came to faith in Christ and how the Lord really showed Himself beautiful to them with the song of the gospel. And so I thought for those out here it would be really neat for you guys to share about your specific calling to missions per se, and particularly to Peru, and then even about some of the things you've been doing the last 15 years in Lima. So I'm just going to kind of leave it open, and then even you guys might have some questions for them even tonight as they share. They're going to show some pictures of the work as well. So, yeah.
Okay. When we went to Peru, we went there, kind of fast forward to where we were this morning. When we went to, Laura and I got married, went to seminary, and at seminary we were really praying about a call to the mission field. We'd also loved doing college ministry, which we had both done for a number of years, and so we're praying about going into RUF as well. At seminary, I particularly just saw, as I would talk to different people and have, hear about different needs, and plus with the different opportunities that we had to do short-term missions work, I just had a sense that that's what we were supposed to pursue first. So we both agreed together we were going to pursue that first, just because we saw so many people going through seminary, graduating, and what we would learn from the admissions office is that there would be 4 or 5 people lining up for the same job at a PCA church in the U.S. Now there's a lot of church planting that's going on too, but there's also just a lot of people that were very well trained, and I couldn't get away from the needs I'd seen in these other places, and so I just wanted to be part of that solution. And so God opened the door for us to go to Peru. We had become good friends with a Peruvian pastor who was actually at seminary with us. And so when we went to Peru, we went on a team with him, with our mission. He was the team leader. And I was there with a role to support him in working in the church. And his church was planting churches. And so I was helping and mentoring younger guys that were in seminary, that were studying, and also church planting. So we did that for 5 or 6 years. And then after a while, a number of people in the neighborhood where we were living, we just were neighbors that we had met, came to know the Lord, and asked us to organize them into a church. And so I had a chance to plant a church. I've been working and supporting guys doing church planting, but I've never actually planted a church myself. And so with a core group of Peruvians, we planted a church in the neighborhood where we had been living. And that's what I did until we came back. Planted that church, and then before we came back, we were able to turn that over to a Peruvian pastor. And that church is now functioning, it's totally self-supporting, and is continuing to minister and disciple in that community. And then during that time, we also, with our missionary team and the members of that church, we started this home for abused teenage girls who were pregnant because of abuse. And so that was basically overseen spiritually by the home, by me as the pastor, now by the pastor who's there, meeting with the girls, during the week, and then we have a whole staff that meets with them. So we're a designated sort of care organization by the government. They send us these girls that come into police custody from having to be taken out of their house because of domestic violence and different abuse types of situations. And so in that way, our church, part of our sense of what we knew that we were called to do when we went to Peru was we wanted to be able to see the gospel be preached with words, but also with deeds. Peru is a very poor country, and with tremendous amounts of need. So we've had a chance over the course of our time to do feeding programs, to do programs for children in poor neighborhoods, to work with churches in very poor neighborhoods. The neighborhood where we planted our church is a mixture of a lot of poverty, sort of middle class, a lot of crime, just lots of needs. And so the girls that we have, it's kind of centrally located where our church is. The girls come from all over the country. They get taken, they come to Lima, which is where we've worked, where many people come from the mountains, from the jungle to find work and for different reasons. And they end up, getting into trouble or being found by the police, in these different terrible situations. And so our home takes them in. So I wanted to show you some pictures of that. That's since we came back in 2013 for a home assignment. During that time, we decided to roll back from Peru. It was a big decision, and to base here for right now because we felt like that we had sort of worked ourselves out of a job. We've done what we wanted to do, which was plant a church that's now self-supporting. And we wanted to we never went to Peru to be in leadership in the front of stuff. We always wanted to support national workers. And so we felt like we were at a place now that we need to step back and support what we've begun. And that's what we're doing here in the U.S. I go back every quarter, do teaching and training, and continue to do different responsibilities that I have with the home. And here in the States, I'm fundraising for that home to try to help us get our operational budget up. And so I'm going to show you some of these pictures. Bear in mind that this is kind of my presentation that I do for my fundraising work. So this is not to be fundraising funds from you guys. It's just the idea is to show you some pictures. This is what I had in hand. What's that? only 12%. I do have a cord, it's over there in my bag. Girls can get it. Okay, so this is the 1 in 3 women in Peru are victims of domestic violence. And as I mentioned to you, the girls that we have in the home are part of that statistic. There's a tremendous amount of family breakdown in Peru and dysfunctional families. We've had girls that come from, that come out of the drug culture. They have been abandoned by their families. They've gone to work to be on the streets, have fallen into drug use. The pregnancies often result in that context on the street. Some of the girls, their pregnancies have resulted from their father raping them, from their stepfather raping them, from an uncle raping them, from the best friend of the dad raping them. So a lot of the girls that you're going to see, that's basically their story. And as you kind of, what we've had an opportunity to do, we started the home in 2009. You can kind of pop it forward there. Started the home in 2009. Purpose of it is to provide church-based, holistic care of teenage victims of domestic violence and their children. And so the House of Glory name comes from the verse there in Haggai 2:9 that talks about the restoration of the temple in this case, but we're talking about the restoration of their temple, their bodies, who they are, and that's what God is about, doing that. Say church-based because we have a conviction that, part of what I'm preaching on about the kingdom of God moving throughout all the world, that this kingdom, that Jesus is building is a kingdom that is holistic, okay? And so the kingdom is restored in the new heavens, new earth, and so Jesus in his ministry, in the way that he ministered, he preached the gospel, making the priority, the heart and the issues of the heart, like I preached on last night. But it was always treating the whole person. The whole human being he loves, and his salvation is for our whole bodies. That's why we're going to be resurrected, have it restored in the body. So the gospel has to express itself in a holistic way. And so much of the time, there's so many different wonderful ministries that are ministering in different areas of need, what we call parachurch ministries. But if we believe that the church is the institution, I don't really like that word, but the church is what God has appointed to be his body to disciple the nations, to represent him, to move and to fill the earth with his presence. That's the church, the local church, with preaching and sacraments and discipline. And so this home has its own legal structure, but spiritually it's overseen by the church. And that's part of the DNA. We want it to be where the church members understand this is our ministry. These girls are coming into our family as a local church. Our church is small, but the primary caregivers are people from the church that volunteer their time and are involved, women particularly. And so that's the vision. And the kids are able to hear about the gospel in the context of a family. So they're there in the home. If they're there they come when they're sometimes as young as 13. We got a girl in last week or last month that was 13, had a 1-year-old. And so I don't have a picture of her, but if I think I put it on the website. So if you go to the website, you can look at there's a lot more information there about it. But it just gives you, and so they'll stay with us till they're 18, where they're adults and can go back on our own. Sometimes they'll stay longer. But in their life in the home, they go to school. We provide them some vocational training. We share the gospel with them. We love them unconditionally. Provide food, shelter, medical care. A lot of times they're having their babies, so it's prenatal care, postnatal care, and then they're part of the church life in the home groups and worship. And many, if they're there for very long, come to know Christ. And a lot of times they've never ever had a chance to hear the gospel. Not all the time. Sometimes they've had some exposure, but we're modeling the gospel and sharing with them words and deeds. And many of them come into a congregation. And so this is a picture of the church on one of its retreats. This is a retreat that we did last year. At the end of last year, I had a chance to go back down and help with that. And so the pastor, Fidel, who is now the pastor of the church right there in the middle in gray, okay, and he's just a godly man, God provided to lead the church, and just real thankful for how it's continued to grow under his leadership. And so you see the girls are kind of interspersed in the midst of the members. They're members of the church, and the time that they're with us. Sometimes when they leave the home, they'll continue to congregate with us, other times they're moving too far away. So one of our dreams is to be able to eventually have more churches planted throughout the city that would have their open doors to them too and have those connections. So I've kind of said a lot. I know Lori's got some things.
Yeah, I'd love to hear just Lori, maybe even some of your interactions with some of the gals, or I know you do the Bible study and everything. That'd be.
You can kind of keep going.
Yeah, so some of the I don't, if y'all can hear me, it doesn't matter. Okay, so, yeah, the girls, just if you think about it, they come in, they're 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old girls, and, you know, we would have them, we would kind of rotate them. We wanted them to come in our house. We wanted to have some individual time with them too. So, say on Sundays, we might have one or two of them come home with us and have lunch and hanging out with our girls that are their same age. And our girls, or younger, and so our girls are playing with dolls or Barbies or whatever. Okay, and if you think about it, they have a baby, okay, or they're pregnant, and they wanted to play dolls. They wanted to play the things that my girls are playing. Why? Because they're kids. Because they're really kind of, they're moms too, but they're young girls, and they wanted to play and draw and color and do all the things that my girls were doing. So if you think about it, it's hard to think about they're being they're basically forced to grow up super fast because they're now moms. And so how do you, and then they're struggling to accept their children. Because if it's their dad, or their stepdad, or their uncle, or, you know, if it's a rape of outside the home, or been on the street, or something like that, they're resentful. So they're learning how to, you know, we love these children. We are so thankful that they're there, that they haven't been aborted or something. But we have to also work with them, with the girls, to help them accept them. And, you know, that's a work in progress, but then you see them grow to love the kids, accept them and love them. And we've had 2 girls that have given their babies up to adoption out of 32 moms that we have had come be in the home. And it's really, it's hard to be a mom. I mean, I have 5, and it's hard, you know, because it's a struggle, and you're a young kid and all that. But we've just seen them really grow to come to love their kids and want to really see their kids and their own families come to know Christ. The girls also do some technical things, like one of the things we want them to learn is a skill, so that when they get out, when they leave the home, they'll get out. I don't want to sound like a prison or something. But when they leave the home, we want them to have some skill, so that they're not going back on the street and selling candy or something like that, or selling themselves. So they'll go to a beauty school, they'll learn how to do hair, nails, that kind of thing, or they'll go to cooking school or bakery or sewing or different like that. So then they're learning a skill, and you can see the lights come on, you can see how proud of themselves they are because they're learning this skill. And they have something to offer, and they have some way to then support their child when they are on their own. And so most of them, we've had one girl, the very first girl that came in the home, she left when she was 18. So she was there for a little over 4 years. And, you know, that was one extreme. The other extreme is they stay a couple months. It just depends on if they can be reinserted into a safe place or not. So, I don't know if you want us to take questions.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe there'll be a couple questions. Yeah.
Hey, Mark, is it difficult being a man and helping this ministry?
You know, my role at that time when I was there was I was the pastor of the church that was conducting the ministry. So it was defined. I was also president of the home, you know, legally. So yeah, I had kind of the formal sort of leadership responsibilities, but then as a pastor of the church, I would meet with them to have a Bible study and do discipleship. I meet them Sunday mornings too, like in Sunday school class, we have something for them there. And, you know, challenging in the sense of being in a ministry that is so focused on women and young girls and in that situation to some extent, but also I think just because I'm a dad with 4 girls, there was a sense in which I'm able to kind of see them in that way, you know. And so, but at the same time, being in that, just the things that we're sharing about are so heavy, you know, and the spiritual needs and stuff are so heavy that it was draining. And there's also just as a guy, in the dynamic of with young girls and their nursing and all this sort of stuff, you know, I wasn't just logging lots of time in there, you know, other than my specific times to be there. Most of that was the staff that we have, which is women, is dedicated to that. Lori spent a lot of time there too. So my role was to be pastor, to, you know, in that regard, teach them to be a father figure, which is very important, and we encourage the other men in the congregation to be that. You know, we didn't have a lot of dad-type figures in our church because it was a little younger. And so, but it's important for the girls to have male interaction, you know, that's healthy because they never had that. So in that regard, I knew that's part of what we were providing. It was very important, especially for the kids too, you know, to spend time with the children. And we would kind of do things specifically with the kids at times, you know, to take them and do things with them as men. And in the church, the men would always move towards the children and help take care of them, that kind of thing. And so, in that regard, I think the role was important, but then a lot of the intense, you know, kind of counseling and different things like that was taking place at the level of the women and the psychologists that we had and stuff. And also my role being to be an advocate. You know, I feel like that's basically what dads need to be, a protector, an advocate, a champion for that cause. And that's basically what I'm still trying to do here in terms of keep spreading the word about it, talking about it, being somebody that's, you know, standing up for the people who can't speak for themselves. And women and children, you know, in the world statistically are the ones that suffer the bulk of injustice. If you just look at the statistics and wars and these different situations of violence, it's women, it's children that are primarily the ones that suffer. You know, and that's why, you know, God put such a priority on caring for widows and orphans, because those are the ones that are you know, in the society, they're the ones that really get the brunt of a lot of the violence and the injustice and things like that. So my sense is that not just as a pastor, but just as a man, that's part of, you know, we never planned to get into this ministry. Providentially, God sort of led us into it. But once we were in it, I realized we just started to see so much that we need. You know, that there's just very few of these. Our home, we're caring for 12 children at a time. And we have to turn away kids all the time. They call us up, say, can you take this, Mom? We don't have room. We have a 3-bedroom house that we're renting. So, yeah, so that, in that sense, that was kind of my focus. Just say, you know what, I got to preach about this, we got to talk about this, I have to be advocating for it, helping people be involved, you know, and motivating, you know, women in our church to be involved too, as in my role as pastor.
You said God providentially led you to this. Can you kind of explain how you felt the Lord leading you to do a ministry like this?
Would you like to take that? Why don't you go? Sorry.
Yeah, we had another family that was working with us, we had in our team, there's another family, and that family was, and when they were coming to Lima, that was what our team was wanting to do, something, be in mercy ministry. And so we were looking at doing like street boys, doing ministry to street boys or do something to boys. But as we kind of started looking into all the need, but first of all, we wanted to kind of study the demographics of what was there, what was needed. So in that, we learned that there was very little ministry being done with girls. There'd be a lot of pregnant street girls on the street, and there'd be nowhere for them to go. So that's it's complicated.
How do you reach out to these girls and children to let them know that something good was happening like that in your church?
Mm-hmm. Well, the way we are connected with, basically, we can receive girls through the government. So when there's a girl that has been found by the police or by, someone, like if a girl has a baby, she's in the hospital, if she's a minor, she can't leave the hospital without an adult, like an adult person. So if she doesn't have one, then she gets placed into a home and they'll call us. So that's mostly how we get connected. Some cases, people will call us and go, I know somebody, and I say, okay, but we have to go through these channels. So.
How similar is it to Mercy Ministries?
To Mercy Ministries and what, but in.
Like the ministry itself, because there's a ministry called Mercy Ministries.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not familiar.
Yeah,
It's definitely Mercy.
yeah, it would be, I mean, if you're referring to a specific ministry that's called that, Mercy Ministries, I would understand this to be this is a mercy ministry. That's a broad kind of category. It would involve anything that is showing physical mercy to people, whether it's, you could skip through those number ones there. Whether it's showing physical mercy, whether it's feeding the hungry or visiting the sick or visiting the prisoner, those ones that Jesus refers to in Matthew 24, I think it is, that where he talks about those things, that helping the stranger, the foreigner, that kind of thing, where you just practically help the widow, the orphan. Yeah, so this would be that category. Like Lori said, we really wanted to be engaging with children, particularly that were at risk, thinking that was probably going to lead us to boys, because there's a lot of street children. There's a street children problem in all of the world in that sense. And God kind of led us to this as we looked into it. We realized it wasn't. This was an underserved population because of being women working with girls is much more complicated than working with boys. They're on the street because of the pregnancy issue, and the children that are there. It's just real complex.
I'm gonna shut it down for now, but they're still here. We've got another 18 hours with them, and Mark's gonna be sharing some other things as he speaks and everything. But before he speaks, I'm gonna give just a quick break. And I'm gonna do an old school song. So we're gonna stand up.
Can I say something?
Yeah, do it.
Before we finish up this, I wanted to just show you these two things. This is our little flyer that we have for the home. It has information about it. It has all our contact information also. If you are interested in knowing more, knowing a little bit more about it. This actually was made before we had the website up, so the website is up now. And this right here is kind of our last prayer card. So if you would be interested in keeping up with us, just getting in contact with us, my email's on here. I think Lori's is on this other flyer as well. So you can just send me an email, say, hey, I'd like to be on your update list. We send out something every month or so. And so this would enable you to do that. Just take one of those. Those are back in that corner over there. Got a bunch of these. And then there's also, you'll see in there, there's these little, I don't know if it was up on any of the pictures, these little crafts that the girls make. They're little kind of flower pot type of things. This is one of the things that we teach them to do there in the home that they make. So you can take a look at those. And as we're traveling around different places, a lot of times people want to buy those as gifts and stuff. So if you're interested in that, I can talk to you about that later. But that's mostly so you can see this is stuff the girls are doing and making and learning. And that kind of thing. Okay.
Thank you. So to give him a breather because he's getting ready to preach.
I'm sure you have.
I will. Thank you. We're going to stand and sing, Lord, I lift your name on high.